What if one morning you walked outside and found your street buried under a wall of sand? The front door jammed shut, windows shattered, dunes piled so high they swallowed entire houses. To some people, this sounds like a scene from science fiction. But for millions living on the edges of deserts, this nightmare is daily life. Deserts are not the static, empty landscapes we imagine from postcards. They are alive. Their dunes creep forward with each gust of wind, swallowing fields, roads, and sometimes entire towns. Archaeologists have uncovered temples, fortresses, and even lost capitals beneath layers of sand that grew over centuries like a slow-motion avalanche. Take the Atlantis of the Sands, a legendary city called Ubar, once a vital stop for traders carrying frankincense across Arabia. For generations, its story was dismissed as myth, until satellite images in the 1990s revealed ancient roads leading to a settlement buried deep beneath the desert. Cities don't just vanish into thin air. In the desert, they are consumed. And this isn't just history. In Timbuktu, Mali, locals shovel sand from streets every morning to keep UNESCO heritage sites from disappearing. In Shapotou, China, entire neighborhoods are ringed by green belts of shrubs planted to pin the dunes in place. Across the world, people are still locked in the same ancient struggle, holding back the desert, one storm at a time. Why does this happen? The answer lies in forces as old as the Earth itself. Winds that travel for thousands of kilometers, carrying sand like rivers across land, shifting climates that strip away vegetation, and the slow, unstoppable mechanics of geological time. Yet even here, on the desert's edge, humanity doesn't simply surrender. These are landscapes of survival, where resilience and adaptation become as important as food or water. And to understand how cities vanish and how people endure, we must first ask, why do the sands move at all? If deserts are alive, then their heartbeat is the wind. Invisible currents, sculpted by heat and pressure differences, sweep across continents. In the Sahara, rising hot air creates gusts that push dunes forward like slow-motion waves. In some corridors, these dunes advance more than 15 meters a year, fast enough to bury farmland or engulf entire roads in a single season. But wind alone isn't enough. Sand only travels when the ground is stripped bare. Vegetation acts as armor, anchoring soil with roots and shielding it from erosion. When overgrazing, deforestation, or prolonged drought destroys that cover, the land is left defenseless. Once exposed, the desert doesn't creep, it charges. Scientists call this desertification, and it is already reshaping the lives of millions. For Amina, a mother of 3 in the Tunisian town of Douz, this isn't theory. Every week, she joins neighbors to clear dunes that pile against their doorways. The sand they dig is carted away in wheelbarrows, dumped far from the village, only to return after the next storm. Sometimes the sand blocks the single road to the nearest hospital. Sometimes it swallows the small vegetable plots her family depends on. Each shovel is a battle, but one she cannot afford to lose. And Douz is not alone. In Inner Mongolia, China, officials spend millions each year constructing barriers of straw and shrubs to keep moving dunes from overtaking highways and railways. The economic toll is staggering. Globally, the United Nations estimates desertification causes more than $42 billion in losses annually, from ruined farmland to endless maintenance. Climate change is turning up the pressure. Rising temperatures, often pushing fragile soils beyond 95 degrees Fahrenheit, accelerate evaporation, while increasingly erratic rainfall arrives in destructive bursts that wash away what little vegetation remains. With deserts already covering 1/3 of Earth's land, this expansion threatens both food supplies and cultural heritage. Each year, an area nearly the size of Greece is lost to advancing sands. And deserts don't only erase the present, they bury the past. Entire capitals and trade routes have been entombed for centuries beneath drifting dunes. What today feels like an emergency was, in fact, a fate civilizations before us also faced. Yet history also holds clues about resilience. And in later chapters, we'll see how people have always fought back. But first, we journey into the ruins themselves, the forgotten cities that vanished beneath the sand. Across the ancient trade routes of Africa and Arabia lie cities that once thrived and then disappeared beneath the desert. Their stories remind us that the sands are not only destroyers, but also keepers of memory. Take the tale of Ubar, the Atlantis of the sands. For centuries, it was described as a glittering caravan hub where frankincense flowed like gold. Travelers spoke of towering walls and bustling markets, but skeptics dismissed it as legend. That changed in 1992 when NASA satellites detected faint, radiating lines beneath the Omani Desert, ancient caravan tracks converging on a buried settlement. Excavations revealed collapsed stone towers, swallowed when the limestone beneath gave way and the desert consumed the city. What had once been myth emerged again as history. Further along the Nile, the ghost of Amarna lies preserved beneath shifting Egyptian sands. Built by Pharaoh Akhenaten in the 14th century BCE, Amarna was meant to be a radiant new capital, dedicated to the worship of a single sun god. But after his death, the city was abandoned almost overnight. Sand sealed its houses, courtyards, and even children's toys, protecting them from decay. Unlike rain or vegetation, which erase sand and tombs, preserving objects in a dry, airless vault that can last millennia. And in Sudan, the pyramids of Meroe rise like jagged silhouettes from golden dunes. For centuries, most of them were invisible, buried until explorers uncovered their tips in the 19th century. Once the heart of the Kushite Empire, a civilization that rivaled Egypt, these pyramids are now both monuments of grandeur and warnings of fragility. At their peak, these cities were vibrant, powerful, and full of life. Today, they are whispers beneath the sand. And the most haunting truth? The same winds that buried Pharaoh's temples and toppled Ubar's towers are still blowing. They're the very winds now pressing against the walls of modern homes, advancing toward living cities. The past shows us what can be lost. The present will show us what is still at stake. In Namibia, the ghost town of Kalmanskap stands as a chilling reminder of how quickly the desert reclaims what is ours. Once a booming diamond mining settlement in the early 20th century, its streets echoed with wealth and music. Today, silence rules. Homes lie half-filled with sand. A child's toy peeks from beneath a dune in a bedroom. A cracked teacup rests on a table where a miniature mountain of sand climbs toward the ceiling. Kalmanskap is not just abandoned. It has been devoured. But not every city gives up so easily. In Timbuktu, Mali, the fight has been ongoing for decades. Each morning, men, women, and even children take to the streets with shovels, pushing back the sand that pours into alleyways and schools. UNESCO heritage mosques, some dating back to the 14th century, stand proud against the shifting dunes, but only because locals refuse to let them vanish. A pair of weathered hands gripping a shovel, a chalkboard in a classroom dusted over with sand. These images tell a story of resilience written in sweat. Timbuktu survives not by defeating the desert, but by refusing to surrender to it. From this daily, backbreaking effort, we shift to a different strategy, one of design and innovation. In Shapotou, China, engineers began experimenting in the 1950s with a bold idea, weaving straw grids across the desert to anchor the dunes. Decades later, those grids have held firm. The Baotalanzhou Railway, once constantly buried, has remained operational for over 60 years. Fields now yield crops where only emptiness existed before. In close-up, a single green seedling grows stubbornly in the sand. From above, the grids stretch for miles, resembling a human-made fingerprint pressed into the earth. Kalmanskap shows what happens when humanity leaves. Timbuktu reveals the price of staying. Shapotou proves that even the desert can be tamed, if only for a while. These front lines reveal two paths, to be swallowed or to adapt. And the question now is, How will humanity choose to survive? What if the same forces that devour towns could be turned against themselves? Across the world, a single green seedling is becoming the symbol of a new kind of fight, one where humans reclaim deserts instead of fleeing them. In Ethiopia, the Great Green Wall stretches across 20 countries, transforming arid land into living terrain. For El, a farmer in the region, the difference is personal. "My crops survived this year," he says, smiling as he tends maize that would have otherwise failed. Drone footage shows a vast patchwork of green emerging from ochre earth, each sapling a line of defense against advancing sands. The project not only restores soil and vegetation, but also creates jobs, from planting and maintenance to nursery management, injecting economic vitality into struggling communities. Beyond trees, science is pushing boundaries. Engineers in the Middle East are experimenting with bioengineered plants capable of stabilizing dunes faster, while nanotechnology-based coatings help sand-resistant infrastructure endure storms. Solar-powered irrigation systems now bring life to previously barren plots, turning deserts into productive farmland. Smaller-scale solutions also matter. In coastal Australia, movable sand fences shield farms from shifting dunes, while in Brazil, drought-tolerant crops allow communities to thrive despite erratic rainfall. Each initiative is a story of human ingenuity meeting environmental challenge. Across continents, the pattern is clear. Persistence alone cannot hold back the desert. But with innovation, planning, and collaboration, humans are turning vulnerability into opportunity. That single green seedling becomes both metaphor and reality, linking a tiny sprout in a field to massive ecological and technological projects spanning the globe. Persistence alone cannot hold back the advancing desert. But with science and collaboration, perhaps we can change the story of the next century, proving that humanity will not only endure but thrive, even as the sands stretch toward our doorsteps. The sands that buried Ubar and Amarna taught us a lesson about the past. But what if those same sands have a future? What if they are already advancing, not toward ancient ruins, but toward modern cities like Khartoum, Riyadh, and Kabul? By 2050, millions could be on the move as farmland turns to dust, water becomes scarce, and livelihoods vanish. Even regions in Australia, Brazil, and Central Asia face creeping aridity. Desertification is no longer distant. It is pressing at our doorsteps. From Ethiopia to the Middle East, communities are fighting back. AI-powered early warning systems predict shifting dunes. Genetic research has produced drought-resistant crops. Renewable energy projects, including solar-powered irrigation, provide both sustenance and employment. The Great Green Wall, spanning 20 countries, has already stabilized thousands of hectares and created jobs for local farmers and communities. These numbers come from UN Environment Program and FAO reports, highlighting both the challenge and the potential of coordinated action. For Amina and Douz, and for farmers like her in the Sahel, each seedling planted is a lifeline. Every day, they balance against the desert's slow advance, turning small acts into global significance. Across continents, these human-scale efforts anchor the broader solutions, reminding us that survival is both personal and collective. Pause for a moment. A drone shot sweeps over a rehabilitated landscape, green saplings shimmering against golden dunes. Silence. The narration whispers, these successes, these glimmers of hope, depend on us. Economically, the choice is clear. Anti-desertification initiatives may cost tens of billions annually, but inaction could yield hundreds of billions in lost farmland, infrastructure, and human displacement. Politically, international cooperation is essential through funding, research, and policy support. The deserts are a patient, living force. But we have a choice. Will we watch as they claim our future, or will we rise to meet them? One seed, one shovel, one step at a time?